Hey, I'm Freddy, and this week I'm going to show you how to paint a cool SubZero mask. Last video, you got to see me build a station for my airbrushes, and don't worry, I'm going to throw a link down below for you. And this week, I want to give it a test run. Staying in line on the global theme of the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm going to 3D print and paint a face mask of my favorite Mortal Kombat character, SubZero.
Scorpion's better!
Scorpion is overrated and overhyped, Christina! In this video, I'm going to go over some techniques on how I prep and smooth 3D prints, and show you how to get some fantastic pearlescent looking finishes using some products I guarantee you'll want to try for yourself. But first, we need a mask. I bought a model on CG Trader and threw it on my 3D printer. I printed this guy in ABS. There's a couple big gaps on the model, but I can take care of that. Instead of using Bondo to fill the gaps, I'm going to make some ABS putty. You can make putty by measuring out 50 milliliters of acetone, and then pour it into a glass container. Then measure 25 grams of ABS scrap, I'm just using support material here. And then just chop it up, throw it in the jar, shake it up, and leave it a few hours, and you have ABS putty. Now I just brush it on my cracks and imperfections and let it set for a few hours. Once that's all cured, I take a couple nail files and sand down all the putty spots. I use my Dremel to clear out the vents so I can breathe out of the thing. These nail files are perfect for getting tight spaces like these vents nice and flat. Then I use some smaller files to get the finer details flushed out. Okay, now we can prep the mask to be smoothed. My preferred method of smoothing is using filler primer. More specifically, Duplicolor Automotive Filler Primer. This particular primer is lacquer based, so it dries really fast and you can build up a lot of layers really quickly. Using a Lazy Susan, I put on a relatively heavy first coat. It's okay to drench it as long as you make everything relatively even and don't get any running streaks. On things that are a little bigger, what I normally like to do is empty an entire can of filler primer and leave it the next day before sanding. To give you an idea of how much filler primer I use on my 3D prints, 2 full-size 3D printed Stormtrooper helmets should empty an entire can of filler primer. I'm not going to empty a full can, and I'm definitely not going to wait the next day to sand it all down, so I'm going to put it in a hot box. If you want paint to dry quickly, especially lacquers, all you need is a cardboard box and a hairdryer. This method is great for cooking paint dry for handling in under 10 minutes. You want to take your box and cut a couple cross slits in. Place your box over your part, then take your hairdryer, shove it through that hole and turn it on. Since I printed this in ABS, I don't really have to worry about this warping a lot, but you should never put any PLA prints in a hot box. It'll come out all warped like a Picasso painting. You're going to want to do this in at least 2 dry coats. So after about 10 minutes, I put another even thicker coat on, then put it back in the box for another cycle. It's been about a half hour and this stuff is dry enough, so I'm sanding the rest down with some 150 grit. Once sanded, I use an alcohol-soaked rag to wipe down all the dust. Now for the airbrush paint job I'm going to do, I need to put down a shiny chrome base coat first. For any chrome finish I do, even if it's out of a spray paint can, I like to lay down a base coat of satin or glossy black first. Then once that's dry, I follow up with a very, very light coat of metallic chrome paint. I put down the black first because the glossy finish will often shine through the metallic coat, giving it a more mirrored chrome finish than just the regular coat of silver. Now, here's where the airbrush comes in. Yay! The airbrush I highly recommend is the Paasche-HS-Single-Action-Airbrush. It's single action, so it's best for uniform coat spraying and uniform lines and stencils that need to be done quick and easy. It's a good, relatively cheap airbrush that's solvent proof, which is really important to me because I love solvents. Okay, quick chat about the paint. I'm going to be painting this with 2 different kinds. Well, one of them's more of a dye, really. The important part, though, is they're both lacquers, so they're going to dry quick. And they're both fantastic for anodized colored looks. To start off, I'll spray a light coat of Duplicolor Metal Cast Blue. This gives you a great anodized sky blue color. The best part, this paint's so thin you can spray it directly into a cup and use it in an airbrush. This paint is meant to be a candy coat, meaning it's translucent with pigment. It's made to be painted over a highly reflective base coat. I'm putting down a pretty uniform coat first, then I'm doubling back over some of the high spots with more color. Overall, pretty good look. I'm tempted to put more of this paint on, but I have something in mind for the next couple steps. Iridescent finishes have more than one color, so this is where the dye comes in. I want to put down shades of darker blue, so for that I'm going to use Dykem Layout Fluid. Layout Fluid is a dye used by machinists and metalworkers to stain metal parts with a thin layer that can be easily scratched and scribed for marking measurements. It's been used to replicate anodized finishes on hundreds of movie props, from the Fifth Element ZF-1 to everyone's favorite droid R2-D2. The best part? It's thin enough to pour directly in an airbrush.
I'm going back over the high spots with the Dykem. As you can see, it doesn't take much. My goal is to make this look like an even pearlescent paint job, and my color placement is based on where the light would shine the most. This is a good start, but I need more color. Dykem also comes in red, and when used in combination with the blue layers, you get nice shimmering purples. I ended up putting on too much red, so I'm adding a layer of blue Dykem for a darker purple. I went a little too hard on the purples, but that's okay. This is still a beautiful finish. Now, to give it a little more personality.
Another perk to Layout Fluid is how well you can distress it. Because it's made to be easily scribed and scratched off, you can get pretty convincing battle damage and distress marks using Scotch-Brite or steel wool. I used this technique on some of my Swatch helmets and got amazing results a couple years ago.
For this, I'll use my hand sander pad since I couldn't find any steel wool. I start by lightly scraping the edges of the mask. The corners are what I'll be focusing on the most. When it comes to distressing, less is always more, so I always try and be a little conservative with how much I put on. But I think this is a healthy amount. Not too much, not too little.
A big thing to keep in mind here is how you seal this paint job. Dykem isn't made to be permanent, it's more of an ink than a dye. When exposed to constant UV, it's gonna fade, especially the blues. Also, it scratches real easily all the time, so if you really like the look you get, I suggest sealing it to keep it permanent.
This is where I failed at trying something new. I used Sculpt Nouveau's Clear Guard, which is great for sealing patinas. I figured the best UV sealer I had would be the right thing for the job. I should have tested it first because I forgot that this sealer is a heavily thinned lacquer-based one. It displaced the Dykem, causing it to smudge and run a significant amount. If I didn't distress it beforehand, I would have liked how it would turn out. The balloon distress marks aside, this is a beautiful speckled finish. Up close, it almost looks like it was painted the same way a car would, with metallic flakes in the paint. This isn't the look I'm looking for, so I just decided to repaint it. This time, I'm going to put down a coat of red Dykem first, and I'll still put darker coats on the high spots. Then I follow up with an ever so light coat of blue. I'm trying to get a gradual gradient of dark blue to dark purple down the mask. I'm leaving just a few spots slightly untouched to get a more violet color. Alright, now on to some proper clear coating. I'm going to use this Rust-Oleum clear coat. It says it's UV resistant, we'll see how well it works. I want it noted that this one I already tested on a swatch, so I know it'll work. After hitting the clear coat with the hairdryer for a bit, I can see the final finished result. And man, does this look beautiful. I just have one more thing I need to do before I can call this a finished mask.
Now I'm going to make this a functional face mask. My roommate Christina has been making high quality face masks for local businesses, hospitals, those in need for the last couple months.
I put my SubZero mask down, then take one of the masks Christina made for me and turn it inside out. This way the black is facing out towards the vents. Then I lay down some hot glue on the corners and dab it into place. I'm making sure the fabric isn't tightly glued to the mask so it can still wrap around my face. And with that fabric in place, I have a wearable finished SubZero mask.
The camera doesn't really do it justice. It's hard to capture just how great the color is in this light. Pretty good though. Thank God it doesn't smell like paint anymore. This was a real good first project for my airbrush station. Sure, I probably could have spent more time spot filling and sanding the sky smooth, but for me the paint job speaks for itself and that's where all the magic is. So, final thoughts. Dykem is a great product to use. I love how easily it can be scratched. The distressed look I can get while using this product is some of the best and most convincing I've seen out of any product I've used so far. But the drawbacks can add up over time. A lot of prop makers for film don't care how long something lasts as long as it lasts for the end of the production. If you're looking for something that lasts a really long time, I say try something else. I definitely think this stuff is great for using on miniatures, models, display pieces that won't get a lot of sun, so I don't recommend painting an entire costume in this. It should definitely be used for smaller details. As an example, the burn marks on the end of the Mandalorian's rifle would be a great way to use Dykem. And here I'm going to be a stereotypical YouTuber and ask you to hit that like and subscribe button down below, and bonus, hit that bell icon down below and be notified every video I post. I do my absolute best to post projects every 8 days. Until next time, stay cool.